Hi, Ray. It's a great pleasure to interview you. You know, I have a lot of questions, but because we have limited time, so I will go straight to the questions. Yeah. The first question is that just now you said the idea meritocracy is based on one big assumption. A quality group discussion or a quality group decision is better than a single person's decision. That's the assumption I said I'm not 100% convinced. Can you please elaborate a little bit more? Because if you look at the data, you're a great investor. Warren Buffett is a great investor. And Warren Buffett is a one-man show. And his track record is 19% IRR for 56 years. And your track record is 12-something% IRR for 21 years. So from that statistics, would you say it's still not proven? That's one point. Another point I heard is that from actually your investor, they said, oh, Ray has this wonderful machine thing. All the principles are all very fine. But if you separate Ray Dalio's decision versus other colleagues' decision, Ray's decision is much better. That also says that it's an individual decision. How would you comment on that?
Every good decision maker that I know, Warren Buffett has Charlie Munger, and there is, you know that you can't possibly know as much. So when you can have an all-star team, when you can have the smartest people that can disagree well, then you get the best of everybody, right? Because nobody has the best ideas.
Yeah.
The power of that collective decision making. So when people say that, I can tell you, I have 1,500 people who work at Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Okay, they all have different skills, and they're
Yeah.
all contributing in different ways. This has been true for Elon Musk, Steve Jobs.
Right.
Any of those people, when you look at them and you describe and you really look at the combination of those attributes, it's the most powerful. So I'm telling you that that's what's worked well for me. I think it's logical.
Have you ever done the statistics that your decision aside give how much return versus the rest of the group, their returns?
It's not. We don't connect the decision to the return that way mechanically because we think about
It's all group decision.
We think about the criteria for making a decision.
Right.
And we work on those criteria for making a decision. Then we take those criteria and then we test them.
Yeah.
And then we discuss those criteria. So now we have a game plan for each type of decision.
Right.
And then we execute the game plan.
Right.
So it's not like a person's making a decision, like one attribute.
Right.
It is like we think, what happens to a debt crisis? How does it mechanically work?
Yeah.
We studied 47 debt crises and know the mechanics. So by knowing how the machine works, what
Right.
the cause effects of relationships are over a period of time, which we do as a team
Yeah.
to analyze that, we then have the understanding that becomes apparent, and we agree that those are good criteria because not only are they logical, but they also have worked, tested. We have a rule that all decision rules have to be timeless and universal. So you take a decision rule and we run it back in history and we said, did it work in all time frames? And did it work in all countries? Because if it's not timeless, in other words, it did not work in some period of time,
Yeah.
then we have to explain why it didn't work in that period of time, and that brings us better understanding. And the same as if it didn't work in a particular country, what is it about that country that makes that rule different? And by working collectively in that decision-making way, where
Right.
you're thinking about the criteria and the testing of those criteria, then you have that tested game plan and execute that game plan. So you can see that it wouldn't be able to attach that to me, right? Because of the nature of the way we do that exploration.
I see. So go back to the believability weighting. How did you give weighting? So just now you show the way people use the DOT app to rank everybody. That's one way. But do you have any other way, like the KPI?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you really make money for the firm? That's the ultimate decision factor, isn't it?
Of course. I'm just saying that because I think you're
Sorry,
asking
your earphones. Can you guys hear him?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, this is better now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
No, as I told you, I think when you're asking, can you make money, and your decision making, you're thinking about it that it can be connected to that decision. We together have to assess whether we're making money, but let me explain. I don't know, did I adequately explain why the connection isn't direct between an individual making a decision and the performance?
Yeah.
There are other ways that we judge believability, so maybe I'll explain that.
Yeah.
Believability on a dimension is determined by the collection of all data pertaining to that. So in some cases, it's objective data, like if you were to take a test, a math test, or some kind of test. That test will give you data that will help to know that some person is more believable in one dimension than another dimension. How people also assess each other gives them believability. So it is the notion of collecting that data. Don't worry so much about exactly the mechanics of that, because probably you won't do it exactly the way I do. But think about believability in the following way. You have a medical problem. Okay. What's the best way to do a medical problem? I would recommend the following. That you pick 3 doctors who are willing to, the best doctors you can find, smartest people, who are willing to disagree with each other, and you have that examination. Because you could pick any topic, and this works. And when you have smart people who are willing to disagree with each other, if they all triangulate and say, you should do this thing, and it makes sense to you, you should probably do that thing. If they are disagreeing, that will bring up the area, the question, that needs to be examined. And so by having that disagreement, you highlight the question mark, and you examine that question mark, and you look at that. Then, after you've done that, maybe they all agree, and maybe you get an education in the process. You get a great education. And if they still disagree, the way you're going to make your decision is by believability weighting it. Because you're going to think, who are the better doctors? Who sounds smarter? What do they both think? And you're going to believability weight it in your mind. So that thought process is just done with the use of data, because I like data for helping to make that objective. But you don't have to, when you're making your decisions, presumably want to believability weight your decisions.
So for those people who are independent thinker and very smart and also very tough personality, I think normally they would like to work for themselves. So has an organization, how do you keep those smart people?
Because they realize that there's something better, more exciting, more effective, right? If I have a partner who is not able to disagree with me well, I can't respect that partner, and that partner themselves is going to be how can they feel good about themselves? What are they going to do? Just follow my instructions?
Right.
And then I won't have leverage, because they will not be able to be good independent thinkers.
Yeah. But the question is that how do you motivate them, incentivize them? Are you the person willing to share wealth?
Wealth? Yeah, of course we share wealth. Well, but the most important way that you can incentivize people, particularly on ideas, is to have an idea meritocracy. I can't imagine almost anybody that I respect would be in a position as a partner that can't be heard, that their ideas can't be heard, that they don't have the right to make sense of things. If something doesn't make sense, that they don't have the right to ask questions. That's a tremendously powerful motivator for the right person. They appreciate partnership like that rather than to follow. So I think wealth is a consequence of success. But before you have wealth, you have to share the dream, okay? And you have to have a sense of common ownership of that dream, that you're behind it. And you have to be fair with the other person. And that fairness They have to believe the system is fair, right? And that fairness includes fairness in ideas, right? So that's a very powerful force because everybody feels that that is fair. Otherwise, you just have power things going on,
Right.
right? I just want the best ideas to win out. They don't have to come from me.
Right. Okay. Share the vision and fair treatment. Okay.
Everybody says the system is fair.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
So next thing is about meaningful relationship. Can you talk about you're married for 40 years and you're still fascinated with your wife? And tell me what's your secret weapon, secret recipe for keeping a very sort of long and sustainable marriage life?
I think it's sharing common passions.
Common passion?
Passions,
Yeah.
okay. And passions may be new ideas or any kind of passions. An adventure, and then it is the ability to have thoughtful disagreement and get past those disagreements.
So you also have this practice at home.
There are two things I require for everybody who I deal with.
Right.
First, they have to be reasonable.
Yeah.
They must be able to reason, and I will be able to reason with them, but they have to be reasonable. We can't have temper tantrums. Decisions have to be made through reason. And they have to be very considerate. And I will be very considerate. And those are requirements. And then, of course, in a wife, I want more than that. I want to share things. There's a power of love and devotion. And sharing the most important things. When you have children, common children, one of the most important things in your life is in common.
You got something
So you
in
have
common.
to keep, I think you have to keep it exciting, and also you have to realize, like any good relationship, that the bigger things are more important than the little things. In other words, that something great is produced by a long-term relationship. You can't replicate the beauty of a great long-term relationship. And we gave Mr. Wong an example. Okay, that's 33 years. The rewards that I've had from long-term relationships have been the most satisfying things in my life. Much more important than whatever money I've made. Money it has diminishing returns.
Yeah.
You know, once you get past the ability to take care of yourself and your family, psychologists have shown that you don't get greater happiness from money. Money's not going to bring you greater happiness. All studies around the world have shown that the thing that brings the greatest happiness is a sense of community, the relationships that you have. And so many of you, maybe are early stages of your development. I've had the benefit of looking down, of having no money and having the progression to have a lot of money and all of those things, and having people I know who have. And I would say that the most important thing, meaningful work and meaningful relationships, is the game that you are pursuing with other people or your life. That is a source, I think, of great joy. In any case, it has been for me. Each person has to decide for themselves. You get a bigger house or a bigger car or whatever, the marginal utility of that is somewhat limited.
Totally agree. So a second important relationship is your kids. So how would you rank yourself in terms of being a dad? I mean, if you are going to raise your kids again, what would you do differently?
I think that it's an interesting question. I think that they would say even more freedom.
More freedom.
I think even more freedom, more freedom for them to make mistakes.
Really?
Even more
Aren't
freedom.
you worried about that? I got a teenager boy, 2 teenager boys. I'm worried about them all the time.
Yeah. You worry about your kids.
Yeah.
And then you realize failure and banging themselves up and their freedom
But you
to
would
do
feel that
their
you
things.
should have helped them, right?
I
As a
know,
dad
but I
always-
think when I look at that, I think sometimes in helping them, you're conveying a message to them that they can't do it on their own, and you're preventing them from having those experiences. So my own assessment is, I probably more freedom.
But I read a chapter in your book that, I think it's Paul. You get the feeling of if you don't hold his hand, he's going to fall on the cliff.
My son Paul became bipolar, became crazy, bipolar, and that was right. And there was a time where, he could become suicidal. He could become just in terrible condition, and we had to go through that together. Yes, and it brought us closer together. And so there are times that such things happen. Fortunately, Paul is now one of the most centered, happy people I know. But we had to go through, and parents will go through that with kids. So yeah, it's not I don't want to say you can always do that, or at any stage. You were asking me generally, so maximizing.
More freedom.
Yeah, maximizing.
Okay.
And I think it depends on their ages, at various stages. But you have to, I think they would say, and I would say, if I did one thing, I probably could have given them even more freedom, even though I gave them a lot of freedom of choice.
Okay.
Because I think it's the self-actualization. We have a very narrow definition of success. So success really is to know your own passion and to go through your own discovery process.
Okay, my next question is about your major decision in life. You said at this stage in your life you want to help other people succeed, and you're helping, advising a lot of policymakers. My question is that the most effective way to help people is to become a politician yourself. Why don't you run for public service? A governor like Michael, the New York governor, or even like the president, why don't you do that?
Because I'm not crazy?
You're not crazy?
What a horrible position to be in.
Isn't that right? That's the best way to help people. You make policy.
Oh,
right?
no. I think others are better suited for that than I am.
You're happy with the way you are?
And also, let me be clear.
And you're still very young. Why do you want to retire?
No, I don't want to retire. I want adventures.
You are no longer CEO.
No. Please let me clarify. To be free of obligations and to have others successful without me is what I want. That's a joy. I still love adventures. I will always play my markets and the game, and I will always do the things that excite me. And I have many things that excite me. I'm not going to run out of things that excite me. I'm going to run after all the things. But to know that others are successful, that's a beautiful form of success. And then to just have your freedom to have whatever excites you. That's my stage. And I will go quiet. I don't like public attention. I don't like the public element. I will pass that, and then I'm going to go quiet, and I'm going to explore the things that I enjoy, but I will always play the markets.
Don't you agree that being a politician is the best way to help people? At least influence people.
I think...
you have principle that if you're a politician.
I think that what politicians do, particularly good ones, is a very noble and difficult thing.
Yeah, that's why you should do it.
And I think, and I think that there is a stage for other people to do that. I think that as you think about decision making, and you operate within a political environment that is not an idea meritocratic political environment, and how do you get past thoughtful disagreement, and how do you operate that way? It becomes very challenging. So for me, I don't want to. So
you're saying you're not as
I can
good.
give it. It's not my responsibility. I can give advice. I'm happy to give advice. I give advice, but it's not what I think I would be the best person for, and I don't.
Why you're not the best person?
Well, because I think people prefer that job, and and then they're more political. I'm not political.
But you have principle. That's the most important thing.
I think that others have that role, and it's in their responsibility to
So you're not
try
interested,
to be.
you're saying?
I think that right now we're at a time where we're at low point for principles, generally speaking.
Low what?
A low point for principles.
Yeah, that's why you should be a politician. Bring that
Forgetting
to the
about
public
me being
service.
let's go to the next subject. I'm not going to be a politician. But I do think that what happens is we have to think, what are the principles that bind us together? What are
Right.
the principles that define us? What do we agree on? What do we disagree on?
Yeah.
How should we deal with disagreement?
Yeah.
How do we get past disagreement? I think because of various reasons, we're not thinking at a principle level. There may be declines in where we used to get principles. Sometimes you get principles from religion. I'm not a religious person. I don't, that whole. But you get principles sometimes on how people should be with each other.
Right.
And all of those notions of what is a standard of behavior and that element of morality and connectivity and what is community, what is being a good citizen. There's not enough emphasis, I believe, on those kinds of principles. And individuals thinking themselves, what is the principles, and all of that.
Yeah.
So what I hope to do is to help people focus on those principles, be clear about them, and then define them. I think at this age, the stage in our country, like in the United States, there is a conflict between different factions and different people, and that conflict, without going, is a problem. And unless they go above that conflict
Exactly.
and say, how should we be with each other?
Right.
What are our principles that bind us together? And then how do we get past our disagreements to move forward? Without that, we're going to be in trouble. And so I think that is something that maybe I can help to shine a little light on.
I just got a gut feeling you may be running for government someday. No, 3-5 years down the road. My next question
35
is...
years down the road, okay.
Yeah, maybe, right? Yeah.
Maybe 35 years down the road.
Yeah. My next question is, you play the market on the macro side. So if you look at the future, the big trend, what are the big trends you really believe in that's going to change your life, but still right now is underestimated?
I did a 30-minute video called How the Economic Machine Works.
Yeah.
That's also available in Chinese. Maybe somebody can get that to people who are interested in. And the reason I did it is to create a template so that everybody could look at where we are in the cycles and know where they are at all points in time. And so we are at a point in a cycle that is important. We will go through those cycles.
Yeah.
Underlying those cycles is productivity. In other words, the invention. Our living standards over a period of time improve because we learn and we do things better over a period. So the output per hour worked rises because we invent that. We move that way. I believe that algorithmic decision making is going to be both the greatest power and the greatest threat to us. And I just want to maybe describe the algorithmic decision making for a minute. Where do you get your algorithms from? There are two places you can get your algorithms from. You can either take your thinking and express them in algorithms, and that's where you get them from. And that's a reflection of your deep understanding.
Right.
Or you can put data into a machine, and it will come up with algorithms. And if it comes up with algorithms, you won't be able to understand the algorithms.
Yeah.
Okay. So now going forward, what's safe and what's dangerous? What's safe is to take your algorithms and the deep understanding and expressing it. And it's also safe if you take machine learning and you put it on things, decisions, in which there's a high sample size so that the future will be the same as the past. In other words, if the future is the same as the past, you can derive that. So in playing chess or in playing games, or if doctors are doing surgeries or in reading x-rays, You
Right.
can watch that, you can convert that to data, and you can make robotics, and that's going to be a force. And so you're going to see a lot more algorithmic decision-making and a lot more transparency. I think that's going to change. But it's a threat because when they do machine learning and when the future is different from the past, that's very dangerous. So there's going to be a problem. So I think in the future, the biggest force will be algorithmic decision. It will change work, okay? It'll change employment. You will either know how to convert your thoughts into algorithms and speak that new language, or you'll probably be unemployed. So I think that that's probably the biggest force. But that unleashes so many other areas because as we go into quantum physics and we think how quantum computing is going to come along, quantum computing is going to be another revolution. And it's going to accelerate. So that learning, that power of data, and being able to convert that, I think, is going to be the greatest force that's going to permeate everything. It's going to permeate education. It's going to permeate healthcare. It's going to change everything.
Yeah, so your picture a future that algorithm will not doing things much more efficient than we are, and they make all the decision. And basically, like Dr. Harari in his book writes that the human being will divide by two types of people. One is 1% people who control the algorithm. They are superhuman beings. The other 99% are dummies, nothing to do.
I don't think it's like that. I think that what happens is because we're at a generation, those who have wisdom.
So what do we do? I mean, machine does everything for us.
No. I think that it's the partnership.
Human and machine partnership?
The human and the machine partnership. Because
Can we just get this chipset, put in our mind? First of all, let us live forever. Second, we become half man and half computer.
No, I
but
don't.
We are very powerful.
I don't mean it like that. I mean it that what happens is the human brain is unique in being able to come up with imagination and intuition and certain things that the computer will not be able to do for a very long time. And we're now in a generation where there are many people who have knowledge. You gave the example, you said, whether it's Bill Gates or it's those types of people. And now you think, I'm going to put machine learning and I'm going to compete against that Steve Jobs or that Elon Musk or your equivalents, okay? And do you know how long it's going to be before that computer will actually beat that up?
I'm glad AI cannot do my job.
Okay, if instead you take wise people and knowledgeable people, and you have them speak that language, and you work with partnership, it's a power. So what I'm imagining...
So work together.
Let me say, is that what happens is many smart people will have next to them, this is what I do, I have next to them people who can take their thoughts and put them into algorithms, because younger people are understanding and they're able to speak that language. And when you have next to you somebody, if you have next to you somebody who can take your thoughts and your criteria to have how you pick which companies you're interested and which people are good, and you put that next to you, then you help each other. Because that person who can translate and make it go into an algorithm helps you, but they don't have what you have in the way of those judgments to be able to make that. And so I think that we can come into a new world in which there's a partnership of younger people who know how to do that. And then I think you take a generation forward, then they will speak that language at the same time as they will think that way.
Another related question about this is that if you have AI, and who owns the AI is the big company, the super platform I talked about. They have the data, they have the scenario, they control. It's like Mark Zuckerberg of the world. Control is too much power. But do you think we should have another decentralized system like blockchain to basically evolutionize them? What do you think of the blockchain's future as a technology?
I think blockchain is a great technology that will have an important impact in our future. I think it'll be great, but how
philosophically, do you believe in centralized super platform model, or do you believe in decentralized model like blockchain?
I think each depends on its circumstances. I think that gathering information together and achieving a holistic understanding is fantastic. Okay? I believe in understanding the laws of the universe.
Right.
All that, bringing that. And when you bring information together and you can put it together and then you have a holistic understanding, I'm attached to that.
Right.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's great. And then I think in terms of distributed ledger technologies, it's terrific. It serves its purpose. It gets the middleman out. It makes distribution. It changes the nature of power. So it's the equivalent of democratizing things. It's breaking up monopolies, the equivalent of monopolies. That's a healthy exercise. So both have their power and both have their places. So, I wouldn't make a generalization like there should be just one or just the other. I think they both have their places.
Okay. My last question. If you were, like today, 20 years old, what advice would you give yourself? Giving such a dynamic future right now.
Yeah. First, know your nature.
Know your nature.
Know your nature. Everybody has a different nature, whatever their personality, what they're drawn to, the things that they like.
If this guy's nature is bad, what would you
I'm
do?
sorry?
If he has a bad nature.
No, I don't think that people, I think that people see things differently. I'll give you an oversimplified. What I'm trying to say is, give you an idea that maybe there are 50 or 100 different personality types in the world.
Yeah.
And probably you could narrow that down, generalization, to make it 15 or 20. And then there are all these roles that happen over and over again.
Yeah.
Paths. You go down a path to be a antique collector.
Yeah.
And you go down a path to your path, and there's a limited number of those paths. And those stories just keep playing out kind of over and over again. And if you can step back and sort of know your nature, what that path is, and know what you don't know, appreciate the ability to take in and see things through other people's eyes, and then go on your adventure.
Go on an adventure, whatever
Go
you
on
want
your
to do.
adventure,
Whatever that is.
where you're drawn, and learn and realize that whatever goal you're going for is just happens to be the thing you see at that time. But as you achieve it and you move it, you're going to go after new goals, you're going to evolve, and to appreciate the whole evolution. And don't make so much of the problem. Sometimes people, they crash. They say, oh, this terrible thing has happened to me. You know what? Life goes on.
Yeah.
You're going to get past that. And
Right.
then it continues.
Yeah.
And just learn from it, evolve, enjoy it, realize it's difficult, but it's joyous.
Yeah. That's a very good psychology. Pain plus reflection equals progress. That's a very effective way of making mistake and learn from it. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.